Good morning and welcome to Morning Java, brought to you as always by GetGo Cafe+Market, where, as always, Tom, they've got fresh food, fresh drinks ready for you right there and ready for curbside pickup. If you're, everyone sees the COVID numbers are spiking right now across the country, especially in Allegheny County. But you can go to GetGo. They'll help with curbside delivery to make sure that you're staying safe while still getting your fresh foods. I'm Chris Carter. He's Tom Reed. And before we get into the Steelers playing today, because they do play at 5 p.m., Heinz Field, Washington football team, all that, we got to talk about the Sunday games, and particularly about the three games the Steelers were looking at to clinch their spot in the playoffs. Because in each situation, Tom, the Browns beat the Titans by 6, the Dolphins were able to hold off the Bengals, and the Raiders barely held off the Jets. It was an interesting set of games, though, to watch across the 1 p.m. games.
Yeah. I mean, the Steelers are going to clinch. To me, it's all about whether they're going to have the bye week or not.
Right.
That's to me the last bit of intrigue. And it's funny because to get that, they may have to go 16-0, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's that important, but because I don't know if the Chiefs are going to lose again, they may have to go 16-0 to guarantee that. Yeah, it's interesting. I think we all thought at the beginning of the year, the Steelers were going to have a good shot to make the playoffs, and of course the other team would be the Ravens. Well, it turns out it may be the Browns. The Browns went into a game today. Now, granted, they have not had a hard schedule, and prior to Sunday, the two teams that they had played that were the teams in this division, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, beat them soundly.
Yeah.
Now on Sunday they go up against a team that was 8-3, just like them, and they had a terrific performance. And I think there's a really, really strong chance this team's going to make the playoffs. And I again, if the Steelers hang on to that top spot, they won't probably see the Browns. Probably won't see the Browns right away. But again, it's weirder things can happen. They've met a couple times in the playoffs. The Ravens, the team just a couple days ago, boy, do they have work to do. And the game next Sunday or against the Browns, I'm sorry, Monday night, it's next Monday night, is almost a must-win for them. I don't think they can afford to lose that game in Cleveland and have any real shot at getting in.
I feel like all the games are must-wins right now for the Ravens because it's not just the Browns. It's they got to catch up because the Browns, they're 2 games behind. If they go 3 games behind the Browns, you can forget about that. And then you also have to consider the Raiders who won this week. And you look at the Titans and Colts who are still having a better record than the Ravens. And the Ravens are right now looking at being on the they're on the outside picture of the playoffs.
Yeah, they're I think they're if we're deciding there's going to be 3 wild card teams, I think they're in 5th.
Yeah.
Now, the Dolphins have a really rough schedule down the stretch, and really after the Browns, and it's odd to say that after the Browns, the Ravens have a pretty easy ride in. Now again, they've still got to beat Dallas.
Yeah, right, which is no easy thing to do.
They've got you're right. They've got to win them all, but that Browns game to me is they almost have to win that game to get in. But I think more and more we see of this, Chris. I think it's the 2 at the top and everybody else. I mean, not to say you never say never. In one game and in this crazy world of COVID, how many guys are – we just saw it last week with Baltimore of how many guys are available to play. But it looks like those 2 teams with Kansas City, Pittsburgh and Kansas City at the top should be meeting in the conference final. Unless something really crazy happens.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's any given Sunday. Anybody can pull off an upset. There's times when the Colts and the Patriots, they would have their big runs of years where they would go 10-0, 11-0, and then some team would sneak in and slap them in the playoffs, and then all of a sudden, whoops, we're not talking about them in the AFC Championship game. So it's certainly doable. I was impressed by how the Browns jumped out to their lead. They took advantage of almost every Titan mistake in that game.
Yeah.
Stripping Derrick Henry behind the line was impressive. Donovan Peoples-Jones dropped what is a touchdown earlier, and then he made a nice double move and caught one later. But I was concerned for the Browns when you saw the Titans start to roar back, and the Browns didn't look like they had many answers. And they were able to recover both of the onside kicks, and they did their job to win. I was just like, I just thought that with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, I was like, man, this game should be, they should be just piling over the Titans. But again, a solid win for the Browns and a win that they needed to kind of keep Baltimore off. If they still, because here's the thing, if they still lose to Baltimore, these teams will be one game apart. And that's if Baltimore beats the Cowboys. And Baltimore does have a quote-unquote easy schedule down the stretch, but they're still recovering from COVID, Tom. I don't consider them a given going forward to just win the rest of their games.
Well, yeah, I don't think Mark Andrews is playing against Dallas. And who else? Well, Mark Andrews is the big one that's not playing. But yeah, for the Browns, I think the most encouraging thing for them, and we'll move on here, but, for so long, Baker Mayfield has just really been kind of the game manager type. Well, you know what? Today, the Titans, and we remember when the Steelers played them, not a great defense, but they said, all right, Baker Mayfield, beat us. And he did.
And he did.
He's the one that got them out to the big lead. And they were able to hold on, at the end. Obviously the Titans came back and made it close, respectable at the end. But that's a huge boost for the Browns and for Baker Mayfield, who, again, has taken a lot of criticism, even last week, I think, against Jacksonville, missing open guys and stuff. So maybe this is a boost for him, and we'll see where it leads him.
We will see. All right, so, Tom, we got a bunch of different updates for the Steelers that we got to get through before we start talking about the actual game. Now, Steelers fans, calm down. Ben Roethlisberger's going to play. I saw a lot of people. Ben Roethlisberger's not playing. He's not practicing on Thursday and Friday. What's going on? And I was like, guys, calm down. He just threw 51 passes on Wednesday. He's 38 years old. He needs time to recover, and he doesn't need to practice that much. We've seen it this year. I thought that was a little much from the field. But the interesting things here that we do know, Chris Boswell, the team's kicker, is doubtful. They signed Matthew Wright to the practice squad. He's going to be, possibly promoted by the time this video airs or sometime on Monday. James Conner is reported by Adam Schefter, Tom, to be activated from the COVID list but not be able to play in this game. And then there's still no word on Marquise Pouncey's return, but they do get Stephon Tuitt back.
Yeah. Yeah, it may be good to keep Stephon Tuitt off Twitter on game days and just in the room, where he's certainly been excellent. Roethlisberger, to me, all of his career, I've always considered him Evel Knievel for people old enough to remember the Daredevil, because there's nothing. Just you really have to tear the tendons off the elbow to get him out of a game. He's always going to play if he's ambulatory. So yeah, you expect him to play. It'll be interesting to see if how well they can run the ball again. I thought, he didn't have a lot of yards, but I thought Benny Snell had a sneaky good game in that game against Baltimore. A couple big runs at the end. And one thing that he's not been known for in the past is catching the ball out of the backfield. He had a couple of nice catches in that game. So we'll see if he can build on that. Obviously, getting to it back will be huge. But, I think all eyes right now on Alex Highsmith, and maybe we're going to get into this in a second, but, that to me, more than everyone talked about, oh my God, how bad they looked the other day. I've always been I always will say this, it's a pass-fail league. Mm-hmm. Every week it's a pass-fail league. They passed. They didn't look great. They passed. But the big story coming out of that game last week was to losing Bud Dupree, and now losing two starting linebackers. Boy, that's going to be a big mountain to overcome. But again, I think Alex Highsmith has looked good in limited reps, and we'll see if he can stand in there and give the Steelers that other side of the formation pressure. Obviously, Watt gives it on the one side, and Dupree. Those two were so good together on either side of the line. And now will Highsmith be able to do the same thing? We're going to find out.
We will find out. On your Benny Snell point, I thought he was very good as well. He did a very good job picking up the pass rush up, as Ben's sidecar, which is a huge role for the Steelers running backs in today's NFL. It's a big reason also why the team has only allowed 10 sacks on the season, which is a league low. But on Alex Highsmith, because you read it right, that's where I was going with this, is the fact that you got a rookie who in a year where the Steelers have seen so much from their rookies, Kevin Dotson's filled in really well at guard and done really well. They've had Chase Claypool put up 10 touchdowns in 10 games. A lot of these other things. They even had Anthony McFarland come in. Antoine Brooks has seen the field a little bit. Even Carlos Davis, the team's 7th-round draft pick, has seen the field this year and not really been exploited. He hasn't been, all that good, but he hasn't been, totally ripped out for it. Now you're asking Alex Highsmith to come in and start for the rest of the season. I think that they're going to, work in more of Ola Adini to spell him as much as they can and, keep him as fresh as possible and let him, slow the game down more. But I was encouraged, and I have been encouraged by Alex Highsmith's play when we've seen him this year. He's had more than a couple good pass rush reps. He looks comparable against the run. And he does look like a good athlete to have out there on the edge. But you're absolutely right. He's still not Bud Dupree. And him and T.J. Watt's chemistry, both as friends and as teammates, I think that is something that the Steelers absolutely will miss.
Well, this is why he was drafted, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen with Bud Dupree. Most likely before this injury, he was gone. Sadly, in some ways, it may put him back into play because some teams may not want to give a huge contract to a guy coming off an ACL injury, and he may come back into play for the Steelers. But for the here and now, it's a huge chance for Highsmith, and more so here than nothing against Robert Spillane. But Robert Spillane was a undrafted guy, special teams, really good special teams guy who's filling in, right?
Yeah.
Where Highsmith is the guy who's the kind of heir apparent to Bud Dupree. So it's just happening a little quicker, and we'll see if he can be put into a, let's face it, there's some massive games coming up here in about a month or less than a month. So we'll see.
Okay, Tom, now it's time to talk about the game. 5 p.m. kickoff, Steelers versus Washington football team. A few things that I look at with this Washington team are, one, they got 2 stars on offense, and that's Antonio Gibson at running back and Terry McLaurin at wide receiver. McLaurin's got like 930 yards catching the ball. Nobody else comes even close to that for them. And Gibson has 11 touchdowns on the year. Both are very good athletes that I think are highly respectable, and the 2 guys the Steelers need to focus on the most. But also on defense, this is a group with 36 sacks, the second most in the NFL coming into this week. And with that, none of their guys have more than 6 sacks. It's a very even spread of 6, 5, 4.5, 4, 3, 2, and you get a lot of guys fitting across the board. What do you think is the biggest challenge the Steelers face in the other team this week?
I think it's more than anything just regaining the. I don't even know. I'm going to hedge on that question. I'm going to just say just regaining their sharpness.
Okay.
They weren't sharp the other day. They did not seem focused. Again, I want to give a ton of credit to the Ravens. I know a lot of people, you're always looking at your own team that you're covering, and clearly the Steelers did not play well. Baltimore, I thought that's why it's a rivalry. With all those guys, they came in, played hard, but I think there's no question. Mike Tomlin, that's as angry as I've heard him. I haven't covered the team over the years, but he was angry. You could just hear him coming across the Zoom call, how upset he was with the probably lack of focus. And let's go back to the Stephon Tuitt tweet before the game. If he's saying it, there were probably others thinking it too, that this was going to be an easy game. Now, again, to me, the motivation now becomes not just winning games, but holding on to that home field advantage throughout the playoffs. That should spur them. I mean, they just had a very close call. They had a let up. They had a let off, I should say. No excuse to have 2 of those type of performances in a row. And I think if they play anywhere near the level they're able to play at, they'll win. Alex Smith, what a great comeback story he is, but not a very mobile quarterback. I look for the Steelers to get after him. To your point, I live in Columbus. Chase Young, his numbers aren't great yet, but what a terrific addition he's been to that.
He's an amazing athlete.
Yeah, he's been, and he's only going to get better. It's very much by committee, the way that they're getting after the quarterback. Again, I just think if the Steelers come out and play their game, play well, get just enough from the running game, I can't imagine that the Steelers wide receivers will drop that many passes again. I think they win this game by 7-8 points at least. Again, not to dodge your question, I just think it's all about them this week, just regaining that sharpness that was lacking last week.
No, I do agree because I think I always look at matchups and where another team can strike and hit a weakness of the team that you're covering. But I also look at what you're saying here is that the Steelers were way off last week, and also last week was the weirdest week in the history of the NFL. I mean, it was the longest week. They thought they were playing on Thursday, then Sunday, then Monday, and then eventually Tuesday, and they weren't even sure if they were going to play on Tuesday. And then they played Wednesday. Like that was that's the whole thing about that is that I'm not going to just throw this game in and say that's who they are right now because they had one struggling performance to catch the ball, which was uncharacteristic. A lot of people, were saying, well, Ebron does have a record of dropping the ball. Well, he had 2 before that game and 2 in that game. He doubled his numbers. Chase Claypool had 3 going into that game. And then he dropped 2. And I guess so. Like
Deontay's had a few.
Now Deontay Johnson's different. He has had the dropsies,
but he makes so many good plays. Yeah, I just don't see them all having a game like that. Again, we talked earlier about the Redskins and their pass rush by committee. That's what the Steelers do. Wide receivers. Rarely are they going to have a game where all those guys struggle to catch the ball. That's again why I think they're in good shape. And it is weird these like late afternoon games.
Yeah.
We have another one with 5 o'clock today. That's an odd time, just as odd as 3:40 was the week before. But I just think that Tomlin and the leaders of that team will have them more prepared from jump this week to take care of a team that they should beat.
I agree. I think that they're going to, and like you said, in that press conference, you could feel Mike Tomlin. This wasn't the Steelers, and you saw Ben Roethlisberger, Juju Smith-Schuster, Joe Hayden, T.J. Watt. T.J. Watt was still wearing his shoulder pads in the Zoom conference. That's how locked in he still was after the game, and he had 2 sacks in that game. Like he's one of the guys you could say, no, you didn't have a bad game, sir, but the team did. And
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
But my point is that it's remarkable that you could say an 11-0, you could I could see players in their 20s getting lost in it and saying, you know what? Yeah, we almost lost, but we won again. Who cares? No, that's not the mentality of this team right now. They're saying, you know what? Yeah, we got a lot to clean up. You saw the disgust in their faces, just like you saw the disgust in the face of Tomlin. And I think it's going to say a lot this week how they respond, even in a very short week from Wednesday to Monday, how they respond to that challenge.
Again, from here on out, to me, the story beyond the field is the specter of the Kansas City Chiefs, and knowing they're right on their tail and knowing that they cannot slip up here to secure that home field advantage. That should be enough beyond the talent and everything to keep pushing these guys, because not only home field, but they're, if we don't have a week 18, and let's knock on wood that we don't have to have a week 18, someone's going to get a bye. And all the football the Steelers are going to have to play down the stretch that will be a huge thing for them to kind of rest up and get ready for the playoffs. And you just don't want to jeopardize that. They're in a great spot. They just have to keep winning. And I think part of it was we got really lucky. We didn't play well, and we got away with one. And we can't afford to let that happen again, because we can't afford to let this home field advantage, which again may or may not be a big thing without fans, but that bye week, only one team's getting a bye week, that is going to be huge.
I agree.